and welcome to division. Just before we start, a reminder that there is a notes jotter available for this video. Just check the description below for a download link and you can work along with me as we go through the video. So in this video what we're going to look at is a method known as short division, or sometimes known as the bus stop method. And the reason that it's called the bus stop method is that as we are doing the division, we set it up with a little diagram like this, and it looks a little bit like a bus stop. And so when we are looking at division, we first think of the number we are actually dividing, and that number goes underneath the bus stop, so 396. The number you are dividing by, well, that goes in front of the bus stop. And what it is saying each time is you're asking yourself, how many times does the divisor, the number you are dividing by, go into each digit? And so how many times does 3 go into 3? Well, 3 goes into 3 once. How many times does 3 go into 9? Well, 3 goes into 9 3 times. How many times does 3 go into 6? Well, it goes in twice. And therefore, 396 divided by 3 is 132. Next, if we look at 275 divided by 5, again, the number we are dividing goes underneath the bus stop, so 275, and the number we are dividing by goes in front. And so here, what we're asking ourselves is, how many times does 5 go into 2? Well, 5 will not go into 2, and so we use a 0 here. But this 2 has not yet been used up, and so I'm going to carry it over. And so this number is now 27. So the question is, how many times does 5 go into 27? Well, 5 goes into 27 5 times, because 5 times 5 is 25. But again, we haven't used all of the 27. We only got up to 25, so there were 2 left over. And so we carry that 2 over, and we're now looking at how many times 5 goes into 25. Well, that goes in exactly 5 times, and so we have finished our calculation. 275 divided by 5 is 55. Lastly, 948 divided by 4. So again, I want to draw my bus stop. I want 948 underneath, but I'm going to divide it by 4, so that goes in front. And the question is, how many times does 4 go into 9? Well, 4 goes into 9 twice to make 8, well, that leaves us with 1 left over, and so we carry that 1 across. We're now asking, how many times does 4 go into 14? Well, 4, 8, 12, that is 3, but it's got 2 left over. And so we carry the 2 over, and we now have, how many times does 4 go into 28? Well, 4 goes into 28 exactly 7 times, and therefore 948 divided by 4 is 237. So next we're going to look at division where we are dividing by 2-digit numbers. Now I'm going to show you 2 different ways of going about this, and the first one is to first of all think of a division as a fraction. And so 432 divided by 12 could be written as 432 over 12. Now one thing we can do here is we can simplify this fraction. Now both of the numbers are even, and so because they're both even, we can half both numbers. Half of 432, well, half of 400 will be 200, and half of 32 will be 16, so that's 216 over 6. Because we've now simplified it, we're now only dividing by a single digit, and so we're back to the same method as we had previously, just dividing by a single digit. How many 6's go into 2? It is 0, and the 2 is carried over. How many 6's go into 21? Well, 6, 12, 18 gives us 3, with 3 left over. How many 6's go into 36? It is 6. And so this answer is 36, because this calculation and this calculation are exactly the same. And so we could do it where we simplify the calculation using fractions in order to make it a single digit number that we are dividing by. But the other option is that we just actually think about it in terms of the 2-digit number. So I can still write my short division in exactly the same way. So 810 is being divided by 15. Now all I need to think about here is, now how many times does 15 go into 8? Well, 15 does not fit into 8, and so we carry that 8 over and we think about 81. Now with this one, we may need to make a little list. So our 15 times table is not one you're probably familiar with, but it's 15, 30, keep adding 15, it's 45, and 60, and 75, and 90. And so if we have a look down, how many times would it go into 81? Well, that is once, twice, 3, 4, 5 to get me to 81. But that, to get me to 75, well, that is 6 left over. So how many 15s go into 60? Well, if I check the same list, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. And so the answer to 810 divided by 15 will be 54. And so then the last one, 936 divided by 18. So same thing again, you might want to just make a list of your 18 times table, and the 18 times table is just 18 plus 18 plus 18 and so on. So that gives me 36. If I add another 18, I get 54. If I add another 18, I get 72. Another 18, I get 90. And so all I'm going to do here is set this up in the same way. 936 divided by 18. How many 18s go into 9? Well, it is 0. And so I carry the 9 over. How many 18s go into 93? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 takes me to 90, but it has 3 left over. How many 18s go into 36? Well, that is 1, 2. And so 936 divided by 18 is 52. Okay, so we're going to end with dividing by decimals, and so with this one we don't like dividing by decimals, and therefore we want to make them so we are actually dividing by whole numbers. So in this case we do need to think about the fractions first. So 218.4 over 0.6 is the calculation we're actually doing here, because the fraction is just the same as a divide. And what we want to do is we want to convert it so that it is a fraction that is just over 6, because then we are dividing by a whole number and we can use our method just as we did before. So how have I turned 0.6 into 6? Well, I've multiplied by 10. Because I've done that at the bottom, I also need to do it at the top, and so I get 2184. Now both of these calculations are going to give us exactly the same answer because they are equal. And so now all I need to do is set up my bus stop with the values from the second fraction and ask myself, how many times does 6 go into 2? Well, it doesn't, with 2 left over. 6 goes into 21 3 times, with 3 left over. 6 goes into 38, goes in 6 times because that makes 36. That means we have 2 left over. How many 6s go into 24? It is 4. And so my answer is 364. 96 divided by 1.2, well, the same idea again. Think of it as a fraction. I want to make it so that the denominator, the number on the bottom, is a whole number. Well, the way to do that would be to make it 12. And so again, I've just multiplied by 10. So I need to do at the top as well, 960. And again, like we saw before, now we've got 960 divided by 12. If you wanted to, you could actually simplify this fraction. They're both even numbers, so we could make them 6 on the bottom, and half of 960 is 480. And so we could now just do how many 6s go into 480. Well, 6 goes into 4 0 times, with 4 left over. How many 6s go into 48? It is 8 exactly. And how many 6s go into 0? It's 0. And so the answer here is actually 80. In the last case, we've got 432 divided by 0.08. Now if we think about this one as a fraction, if I need to make the bottom number a whole number, well, I need to make it 8. In this case, that is multiplying by 100. And so I need to do the same at the top. It'll be 43200. And so now, when I do my division, it's how many 8s go into 43,200. And how many 8s go into 4? Well, it is 0, with 4 left over. How many 8s go into 43? Well, that is 5, with 3 left over. How many 8s go into 32? Well, that is exactly 4. And how many 8s go into 0? How many 8s go into 0? We have our answer. the answer to that question is actually 5,400. And so lastly, we come to the exam question, and it was from the OCR paper in June 2018, and it was on Foundation Paper 2. This is a non-calculator paper. So a plank of wood 2.4 metres long is cut into 6 pieces of equal length. How long is each piece? Now, the fact that it has been cut into pieces of equal length, it means it has been shared equally, which means it has been divided. And so the 2.4 metre length has been divided into 6 pieces. Now, this means we are dividing a decimal by a whole number, but that is absolutely fine. The method is exactly the same. We ask how many 6's go into 2? Well, that is 0, with 2 left over. The important feature though is this decimal point. The decimal point in the question and the decimal point in the answer must be lined up. So how many 6's go into 24? Well, that is exactly 4. And so each of those pieces must be 0.4 metres long. If you want to test that, you could actually add together 6 0.4s. You would get 2.4. This is our answer.